Good day, America. Good day. Hey, thank you for joining us here at Truth to Freedom Podcast. Real talk for real people. My name is James Parker, one half of the team here at Truth to Freedom. And of course, I'm here with my brother, the other side of Truth to Freedom, Mr. Quentin Williams. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. All right. Hey, we got a lot to dig into today, America. So we're going to dive right on in because we are now a week after uh, the DNC had their convention. And I don't know, do you believe the lies or not? I mean, they said a lot. They had a quite a few heavy hitters. Of course, they had the Obamas. Michelle came and gave her spiel, and then of course Barack. And I heard some. So a guy was talking about Barack. Barack was made to be a politician because he just has that way of speaking. He's well groomed, and he makes you feel what he's talking about. It energizes you, which is what the whole purpose of the convention was, to get the people energized and whatnot. So he did his job. But for me, and then I'm gonna pass it off to you, um, Quentin. For me, my thing is they had quite a few speakers throughout the week. Um, but to be honest, they didn't really say anything that's gonna fix anything. At least I didn't hear. I heard a lot of motivating things. I mean, yeah, purpose to get everybody energized, and that's what they did. I heard a lot of motivation, but I didn't really hear anything that's going to fix the issues and the problems that the American people have, especially from even Kamala. I mean, now I know about her upbringing. I mean, that's all she talked about. Her and Michelle, they talked about their upbringings and their mothers and all this other stuff, which is fine. Maybe that's good to know. I don't know. Um, but I know your family line now. I know your family tree and all what you did and all that. But as far as what you are going to fight for and for what policies you're going to try to input in order to get this economy and get things turned around, I did not receive anything. Um, Maybe it was over my head. I don't know. What do you say, Quinn? What did you get out of it?
So, I watched a few clips of a few different speakers. I mean, I agree. They didn't really have any solid positions they took, and people have been criticizing Kamala for that, and she hasn't picked a position. I didn't hear her speech. I didn't hear Michelle's speech either, but know, I can imagine them talking about their upbringing is
Mhm.
to like draw some commonality so people can empathize with them more and whatnot.
Well, my thing is too, and we've talked about this. Um, and this is where me myself have drawn a line because for years I followed the so-called black vote, and you were only voting because they were black, and you was trying to keep somebody out, and that has gotten us nowhere. Um, I know a lot of people have uh, reservations about Dr. Umar, but if you look past of how he's aggressive talk when he speaks and you listen to what he's saying, and he is absolutely right about the organized vote. You got to look at the whole picture. This is why the NRA has a seat at the table, because they're an organized vote. They use their membership to sway their political power. That's what they do. They use their memberships, their membership base, which is who knows how many. I should have looked it up. I mean, it's a good enough number that it gets them a seat at the table, and it's the same with the LGBTQ. Even though they're organized, but they're not organized. But they're organized enough that that's why they get a seat at the table, and that's why their policies and their issues get addressed because they are a block a voter block group, just like all the rest of these organizations. The AARP, that's a voting block. These people have influence, and that's why they have a seat at the table. Black folks have never had a seat at the table. We don't have a seat at the table because our vote comes on a whim, based on that we're going to follow whatever the wind blows, whatever the agenda calls for. That's what we vote on. And so it's really no rhyme or reason. So they don't consider our votes valuable because they know that we're going to vote with the party. And if they can shine enough rhetoric to let the other side look like they're trying to harm us or kill us or whatever, then of course we're going to vote for them. They don't care. That's just like with the flood of illegals, immigrants coming in. Um, right now, they're not an issue because, of course, they're going to vote the Democrat Party because these are the ones that's allowing them to utilize services and they get them the information and they get them granted access to different things. Um, so naturally, they're going to vote for these people because that's what's keeping them in the country and that's what's going to give them free services. It's when those services get cut off, I guarantee you those immigrants will organize and then they're going to be a voting bloc of power because it's enough of them here that if they ever get organized, they're going to be an issue. But that's why black folks need to wake up that we need to be behind a person that's of substance that's got a standard uh, policy that's going to make a difference for us all, and that's who we need to be standing behind, not behind them, but just because they're the first black woman, and in all honesty, they're not the first black woman. It's funny. Every time they talk about the first black, it's always somebody of mixed race or whatever. It's never like a
Yeah,
true black person that's really black. Mama was black, father was black, whole family was black. No, it's always somebody of mixed race that they always end up talking about. They're the first black. Well, so anyway, what's your opinion on that?
yeah. Well, this is the way I think about it. If they pick someone who is like fully black, their parents and grandparents and ancestors have history here in America, then what they believe, well, sometimes not always
Mm-hmm.
coincide with the agenda, because you still have black Republicans who will come out and say America is not racist and never been racist, stuff like that. But it's symbolism. A lot of it is, mostly all of it is symbolism. The Democratic Party also prides themselves on being a party of multiculturalism.
Right.
So that's how they get a bunch of the vote. You still have a lot of immigrants who vote Republican
Yeah.
because socially, a lot of them are conservative, just like socially, the majority of black people are conservative. So, but no, I agree. We do need somebody that's actually going to address our material needs. Housing, wages, uh, health care, and get some substance and not just an image.
Exactly. Yeah, because they're quick to say, of course, now the argument of we've had enough, we don't need government involved, um, we don't need to regulate or whatever. Okay, we're not regulating, and you see how out of control we are. When we
Mm-hmm.
were regulating, things were fine. Just when they took them regulations off, it's when everybody went amok. And now it's it's worse now than it has ever been, especially when it comes to corporations. It wasn't until you brought something to light, Quentin, and I started kind of like looking at stuff and when we look at all these corporations, it's amazing how many of the big ones own. They're buying out. They're systematically buying out the mom and pops. in the smaller businesses, and they're buying them out and they're closing them out. And if you're union, they're going to shut it down and move somewhere else that doesn't have a union. Um, it's systematic, but it's so spread out. And I think what happens is we get distracted by every little thing. Like if they start a war over there in Iraq, all of a sudden that becomes the focus. Or if there's a fire over here in California, that becomes, there's things that happen that takes off attention off of what really is going on. And then the news media don't really report on it. And so all this stuff is being done behind the scenes. And then you look up one day and wonder, man, why are we, why is prices going up and why we, why all of a sudden we can't do this and we can't do that, and why all of a sudden this company seems to be under everybody's control and all this other stuff? Because we fell asleep. We fell asleep behind the wheel, paying attention to everything else but what's actually going on behind the scenes, which is what really affects America and not what they're telling you.
Yeah, it's deliberate, and I say all the time that there's a lot of manipulation in the system. They always say it's voluntary, but they're not giving, or it's voluntary and people are supposed to make informed decisions, but they're not giving people the whole truth to make it. Mm-hmm. It's deliberate, and it's a media that's owned. It's a corporate media owned by corporations, big money, and as far as like the mom and pop shop, when you go to these little small rural towns, in the middle of nowhere, you see a Dollar General.
Yep.
There's a Dollar General, there's a Walmart. And so these companies like that are what's hurting the small business mom and pop. Meanwhile, they'll push it and they'll say raising wages will hurt mom and pop shop. Well, these businesses are able to get grants and loans from the government, but it's so skewed now to where the big corporations are the ones that get it. So during COVID, they gave the airline industry some money.
Right.
They don't need no money. And you turn around and look, in the last few months, they've been having issues with the planes. So where's the money going? Because it ain't going to quality control.
No, not when you got windows falling off in the middle of the air and all this other stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. But anyway, so America, Mr. Quentin sent me a video. And it's from our friend Mr. Chris Como, who used to be on CNN, and then there was some issues over there, so he kind of branched off and he went on his own. Well, he has a thing that he does, the Como Project. And so this video is not long, but it's kind of long. But you got to watch the whole thing. We're gonna play here in just a minute. We want y'all to watch it, and then we're gonna talk about it a little bit afterward. But watch it and listen exactly what he says as he walks. He's going to point out 3 things about the convention that you need to pay attention to, and it's the 3rd thing that I really want y'all to hear. So that's why I say it's going to be long, because I can't really cut to that part without you hearing the other 2 parts. So we're going to play that video, and then we're going to come back and have a conversation about it here after. But let me see if I can find it. So listen up, America, listen up.
Hey, you want to know 3 things that I learned at the Democratic Convention that we would not have known? Look, I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to the Chris Cuomo Project. So, we're here at the DNC. Show them. Everybody's coming out, telling their speakers. The speakers during the day matter in a way that the speakers at night don't. The speakers at night are the stars, right? They're the galvanizers. But these are the soldiers. This entire convention is about a 2-tiered game. And that's going to be my 3rd point that I'm going to tell you, but I don't want to waste it. These are the soldiers. The party needs these people, okay, who give this, and they give this, all right? They don't necessarily give this. These are the people who work constituencies, work communities, work issues. So it's about energizing them, making them feel that it's worth it to take the time off their jobs, okay? To take the time away from their families. Big names galvanize that at night, right? They're the special sauce. Here are the three things that we've learned. One, we now know what happened to Joe Biden. Joe Biden was absolutely pushed out. Joe Biden did not want to get out. Now look, you can say at this point the party's fine with it. Every poll that we see has over 80, 90% of Democrats are good with the switch. So really, this is somewhat of a dead issue, all right? But it's good to know how we got here. It's good about what it means about party politics. So here's what happened. There are no chieftains in the Democratic Party. Barack Obama does not run the Democratic Party, okay? That's not how it works. It's about constituencies and influence in that moment. So what happened? They were learning from regional pollsters that in counties that mattered, that would determine congressional seats, Democrats were sinking. The presidential nominee, the presumptive one, Biden, wasn't able to get there, wasn't able to pump them up, wasn't able to deliver money. Moments become momentum in politics. Moments become momentum in politics. What does that mean? The polls start to drop. The local organizers start to worry. The donor base starts to hear about it, starts to get a little itchy. Am I making a bad investment? The people who are your bundlers that I've talked to you about before, the people who call the people with the money, started to get nervous. So they start comparing notes. Nancy Pelosi finds out about these things. Other members of Congress that are key to their caucus start to find out, start to go to Hakeem Jeffries and say, I think my seat is in jeopardy. Biden can't come. I don't even know if I want him to come. How are we going to generate the money? How are we going to generate the excitement? How am I going to generate what I need to get the constituents out? They're worrying. Chuck Schumer's worried. Hakeem Jeffries is worried. Quigley is worried. Senator Warner is worried. Senator Coons is worried. People are worried. Guess who also knew these numbers? Biden's team knew the numbers. They had been getting the research from the same pollsters. They weren't telling Joe Biden. Why not? Good question. Several potential answers. One, numbers could change. They didn't believe the numbers. Two, they didn't want to lose their position and status. Three, Biden didn't want to hear it, and the people closest to him didn't want to tell him. And that was a big mistake. So eventually, what happened was, the people around him, the Pelosi's, the Jeffries, they kept coming at him from different angles until he was finally addressed with the reality of the numbers, and then he made the decision. So when he said, only if the Almighty comes down and tells me, that's because he didn't know the truth. And for many people who choose to have faith in their lives, you know what we often call God, what we call the revelation, what we call the word? The truth. And when the truth was finally given to President Biden, that he is sagging in places that are probably unable to recover from in the amount of time, he made the move. Did Kamala Harris have something to do with pushing him out? Nope. Her team was loose, disassociated. She was not a player in the process. She was the no-brainer choice. Why? Because she's a black woman? No. That is hate parade talk. And I'll tell you how we know. The real rationale is very obvious. You want the person who can make the case that is closest to your power base. Who is that? The VP. For you to have overlooked Kamala Harris as the sitting vice president would have been almost a hostile act.
I hope y'all caught that. You heard what he said. You pick the person that is closest to your power base.
Mm-hmm.
So, not that she's qualified, not that she has policies that's going to benefit us. No, you pick the person closest to the power base, which is the black vote, is what they need, and that's what's going to charge them to come over back onto your side. I hope y'all pick that up there, America.
Well, I want to add also, Biden is considered a centrist. And Kamala is too. So they need somebody in that area. They're not too much focused on far left or far right. They need people in the middle, or people that's on the fence. They need somebody that can get that.
And that's who they was thinking Kamala will be able to do.
Well, she's a centrist. Biden's a centrist. I don't know who else they would have picked.
I don't either, to be honest. I thought about that. I was like, well, who would step up? Because my thing is, out of all the people in America, when it came down to it, Biden and Trump was the only two that supposedly was the best choices out of all the people that ran. I don't believe that. So
No.
he's giving some insight as far as how these choices are being made because it ain't you, America. It ain't you making the choices. It's the people behind the scenes. And what they're trying to do is make sure they make the right choice to influence you to vote their way. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's continue.
Within the Democratic ranks. So the idea of process and all of that, they didn't have time for it. They decided, how do we overlook the vice president? It's not so much that they picked Harris because she's a black woman. It's that if they hadn't picked Harris, it likely would have been because she was a black woman. And what would that have meant in a party that says it's about celebrating diversity? So we now know what it was that led to Biden's ousting. It wasn't Obama pulling strings. It wasn't Harris pulling strings. That is all for the haters and the people who love conspiracy thinking. It was far more organic than that. And by the way, there's still plenty of room for blame. Biden should have known his numbers. His people should have addressed him with them. They should have had clear eyes. They should have not seen it as a coronation. They should have not seen it as a given, even if traditionally it is. But it's traditionally a given because that's your strongest person. And they had a lot of reason for a long time to not believe that. So now we know. Next thing that we know. As a connection to this point, Kamala Harris was picked because they need someone to make the case they believe they can make. Kamala Harris was not picked just because of what boxes she checks in terms of diversity. Although diversity should matter. We want leadership in this country that looks like our country. The Democrats say they're going to prioritize that. Great. So they're doing it. But that is not what is driving these people, even though you have a lot of people of color within the constituency. It's that she's supposed to be able to make the case. Has she proven that? No. And there are people in-house. This is great. You have the Obamas, they can make the case. God damn, can they make the case? The Obamas blew the roof off this place. I don't know which one's better. Although I do believe there is something a little kind of magical when it comes to politics about Barack Obama. I don't know if it's just his cadence, his demeanor, his call and response. You know, they often say as one of the tropes in politics that Republicans like leaders that can teach, that seem to instruct them about what's going on and what the dynamic is and who's out to get you. Whereas Democrats like people who can preach, right? Who can reach out, who can really connect with the heart as well as with the head. And Obama's got that all day long, as does his wife. But I do think there's something special about Barack Obama when it comes to political acumen and political skill set. And I think he showed that last night. Now, there's also a reason that he and Michelle were removed by 2 days from Harris. Why? Because you got to be careful about overshadowing your nominee. And when she gets this mantle, when this convention ends, when Labor Day happens, right, which is like a week after the convention, it's time for her to make the case. With me, on the media, in the papers, on the sets, from the stump, in a debate, in more than one debate. She's got to show she can make the case. 2 reasons. Maybe 3, but 2 reasons for sure. 1, that's why they picked her. And she shouldn't be hiding from making the case. You'll buy some time. The trend is your friend in politics and the numbers are trending the right way. So they don't want to put her in front of the media, but that teaches us something also. You don't want to put her in front of the media because you think there's risk in that. They wouldn't have done that with Bill Clinton. They wouldn't have done that with Hillary Clinton. They wouldn't have done that with Barack Obama because they felt there was no risk about putting those people in the chair. So here they do see some risk. What does that tell you? It's an open question. I keep saying we've seen a drop in the level of political talent in this country in recent years. I think it's true. And I think that's what people were reminded of when they saw the Obamas, is that we got to a place where you had Biden versus Trump in America, the greatest country in the world with all these leaders, all these people doing amazing things. And that was the best you could get? 2 people at the end of their utility curve? Weird. So Harris is getting pressure in-house, in party, to make the case. Why? Because that's why she was picked. But also there are questions about what that case is for her. I heard two different members of Congress give me two different explanations of what she's going to do with the Iran nuclear deal. One said, completely clear-eyed, she's going to get back in it. Another one said, completely clear-eyed, they got to find another way. Which is it? It's not that they're lying. It's not that they're deceiving me. It's that she's got to pick a path. She's got to make her position known. And very often, even within the party, they learn from what they hear candidates say to the media. That's why it's so important to have free press and to have these conversations and to have these confrontations when need be. Now's the third point, okay? And this, to me, is the biggie. What did we hear at the RNC? We're going after the elites, baby. We're going after these big corporations with their two set of rules, where it's all about them, and Trump can do it because he knows them, and they can't own him, even though he's taking their money hand over fist in ways and amounts we've never seen before. Out where I live on Long Island, insane amounts of money, millions per person. Wow. That's what they said. What do you hear here? Going after the corporations for price gouging. That's why you have high grocery prices. I don't really believe that, by the way. The margins in groceries are very thin. It's about the supply chain. It's about the cost structure. It's about the cost of money. It's about how much money was put in to the economy. It's complicated. It's a world market. It's a world explanation. We don't like complicated in politics. So it's convenient to say go after the corporations and the gouging. Fine, everybody loves that. But here's the reality. You want to hear something that is a fucking shocker? These are the people. These are the soldiers. And look who's looking down on us. Look who's looking down on us. Ring it around. Look all the way around. You start at the first level with the media people. They didn't get those boxes for free. They did not get those boxes for free. You then get to the next level of suites. You see all those suites with glass boxes? On the other side, there are these curtains that get pulled across when people come in for meetings. Those are all corporate donors. 500 grand, 700 grand, $1 million, $1.5 million. I'm not making up the numbers. They're on the menu sheet for the convention. RNC, same fucking thing. So literally, the people you say you're going to go after are looking down on you. You want to go get them, go fucking get them. They're right there. The money has exploded in politics. You almost don't have two parties when it comes to this anymore. The theory of the uniparty is real in as much as this one point is true. They need the money. And after Citizens United, legal money is the most dangerous money in the game now. PACs, super PACs. It allowed corporations and rich individuals to completely go around and blow up any kind of common sense about what matters in politics and motivating message. Because they need commercials, they need social media, it's all money. So they're literally saying they're going to go after the people who bought the boxes. They're in the boxes. You see representatives running around on the floor, doing hits with people like me. They then push you out of the way at the elevator to get back to the boxes. Why? That's where the money is. That's where the money is. And it's not just the Democrats. The Republicans did the same thing at their convention. We were there. Literally looking down on us from on high. The metaphor is staggering because of the reality of it. It used to be that politics was expensive, but after Citizens United, we've seen exponential growth. Billions and billions of dollars are necessary to win. Harris has raised hundreds of millions in the last few weeks. How do you think she did that? 200 million people giving $20 each? Bullshit. It's deep pockets. Trump, I don't need their money. He's drowning in their money. It's a total farce. We're going to go after the elites. Yeah, for checks. We're going to go after the corporations for gouging. Yeah. And then they're going to donate to you. And let's see what kind of legislation you get passed. I'm telling you, it's the most bullshit thing in politics. And look, I don't blame them, and here's why. This is a binary system that is zero-sum, meaning for one to win, the other must lose. There is no cachet, there is no currency to cooperation. It's all about the other side being worse. Now, I believe that the Democrats play a better game, a better version of the game than the Republicans do. That'll be controversial. People will say, no way, the Democrats are the mean ones. Whatever. I believe that they don't attack the way Trump does. I believe that they are trying to make a case that they are better. Can they? Do they have the ideas? Do they have the messenger? Can they make you believe it as a critical thinker, as an independent voter, as a free agent? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. That's what the election is about. But we have learned why Biden is out, what they want to see out of Harris, that they still need to see it, which is part fair and part the reality of what she's got to show. And then the idea that anybody is going to go after the money people is laughable, because they are literally in the fucking house right now. And you go up and you see their suites and they pull the curtain as the people go in. And who are they? They're lobbyists, they're corporations, they're big pharma. They're all there. They're all there. And it's not a Democrat thing. I'm not blowing up the Democrats. The Republicans have the same exact thing. The same thing. And all of it is legal. It's unethical as hell. I would argue it's immoral. I would argue it's undemocratic. I would argue it's un-American. But it's the law because of Citizens United.
Wow, that's pretty much the end of that. What you got to say on that, Quinn?
I agree with him, man. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with Chris Cuomo, but I'm glad he said it because it's true.
Well, I mean, he's right, and the part that took me back is when he said, "Look up, look up in the arena. Here they are, right here. They're looking down at you. They're here to make sure that their money is being well invested.
Mm-hmm.
They're making sure that what they paid for, they're going to get." And the part he said about the actual people in the arena, the soldiers, the ones that go out and do the phone banks, knocking on the doors, passing out flyers, do all the grunt work. These are the people you got to keep motivated and energized. But in the big scheme of things, you actually you're hypnotizing them and you're blinding them. It's almost like Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid. I mean, you get these people so worked up and so fired up that they'll be willing to drink the Kool-Aid if you tell them to do it. But it's blind loyalty. It's blind loyalty. And that's where America has to wake up. I mean, being in politics was not meant to be a job. It wasn't meant to be a business. The whole purpose of representation is that you're supposed to have somebody from your level able to go and represent your causes and fight for what you need from your level. And that makes sense. But because so much money over the years has been fused into politics, and like he said, now they got it where it's legal to do a lot of this stuff that they do, even though it's not ethical, but it's legal because they needed this money to do whatever they needed to do. And corporations and people of influence needed a way that they can flood large amounts of money into the system in order to get what they want to get out of the politician. Now, look at what we have. Because I've heard politicians says, well, this person's not a good candidate because they don't have foreign, whatever the word is, experience dealing with foreign matters and all this other stuff. I'm like, well, who would? Who would? Anybody running for the president, who would? Matter of fact, they can't run because they don't have no experience. Who would have an experience? Because the way it all started out, nobody had experience. Nobody would have had experience. But the whole purpose is that you coming from the ground level where all the work is being done and all the issues are, you, sir or ma'am, are a better candidate to advocate for what we need because you're coming from that environment. You lived it. You worked it. So you know what's going on. Some people up there in Capitol Hill, they can care less. They don't have the same conversations that we have. They don't worry about gas and food and all the other stuff that we down here on the ground level worry about. They don't. But they got that whole arena full of people brainwashed, thinking that they're doing a good thing. Anyway, what you got to say on that?
I think that they fall for the spectacle. Uh, America is very visual. We're real big on image,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a spectacle. And to your point about the donors and them making sure that they make an investment in a candidate, that was a lot of people's issue with Obama because he ran on a whole message of hope and change, and a lot of people believed in it. But 2008 happened, the housing crisis, and he built the banks out. And this other guy, made a good point. He said, "Now, do you think that the donors were confused on his position for a second? No, because if they were, they wouldn't have gambled and put their money in.
Yep.
They knew what they were getting. The people, we didn't know what we would get."
Yeah. We're always the last to know.
Yeah.
But they knew. Yeah. You're right. They knew. But his little explanation about everything, I hope a lot of people take heed to it. I hope they really listen, not just think that he was just rattling off at the mouth. Everything he said, if you think about it, was true and it was on point. It's on point because politics is all about money and power. It is not about helping the common folk. It's not because it's 2024 and we still have the same issues and problems that we've had for years. They don't want to solve the problems. They need us to be the mindless little robots that we are to keep doing what we're doing because that keeps them in power. They're so scared that we all going to be on the same level, which we wouldn't, but that's what they see. They have the control, they have the power, and they want to keep it. And so the only way to do that is to keep us fooled and scared and divided in order to keep them in office and keep the corporations giving them that money that they need in order to do what they do and allow the corporations to run amok because that's what they're doing. They're running amok, doing whatever they want to do, how they want to do it, and don't want to be accountable. That's why they don't want unions.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they don't want unions. Unions hold companies accountable. It's not about telling a corporation or a business what how they need to run the business. It's the fact that to treat the worker fairly, give him a safe working environment, give him a fair day's wage, and provide for him and his family. Because if I'm taking my time to come to your business and I'm trading my time for dollars and I expect to be compensated. Anybody would. Why would I want to go work somewhere for 8 hours and get paid little or nothing? I have no health care, no nothing. I have no sense of retirement or anything. I'm just going to waste my life away here working. And then when it's all said and done, you're going to kick me out to the curb and then bring somebody else in. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. Businesses make billions of dollars, billions. They don't lose no money. And if they notice, look at all these CEOs' salaries and bonus and benefits that they have. Some of these CEOs got private jets. They got homes over here. They got a corporation condo over here that they vacation at. Billions of dollars being spent by these corporations and their CEOs and FSOs and all these other people up there reaping the gains and the benefits of you, the worker, who's generating the income for them to live off of. So why shouldn't you have a piece of the pie? Ain't nobody saying that you should be making the same thing they make, but why shouldn't you have a piece of the pie? Why shouldn't you be comfortable? Why shouldn't you be able to provide for your family? Why should you have to work 8 hours and then go drive Uber or go work wherever in order just to survive? Not make ends meet, just to survive. You have to
Yeah.
do all this. And so why would you not have a job to where you can work and say, my wife wants to stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom, that you can make that decision and not have to kill yourself in order to make it happen. I don't think that's asking a lot. Maybe, I don't know. In the comments, America, you leave a comment, tell me what you think. I don't think that's asking a whole lot. I mean, that's how the world works. That's how you keep the world going. Motivate the employee. He's doing the work that manufactured the product that makes the company money. I mean, it's a very simple, basic thing. I don't know what you think about that, Quentin.
No, I agree. I mean, that is the bare minimum, you know, not taking advantage of people and, exploiting them, exploiting their, precarious position.
Yeah.
They're starving, so they'll work for a little for nothing, and then you just continue to mistreat them. So it's not fair. It's not set up to be fair. The rules are set up to advantage and advantage of big business.
Because my thing is, I mean, why? I just don't get it. Why would you not want to take care of your employees? I just don't get it. Why would you not want to? Why would you look at your employees as a commodity or a liability? And pretty much, I'm gonna use him up, and then when he's gone, I just fill him with somebody else. Why? I mean, why would you even look at another human being like that? Why would you not look at, okay, here I done started this business. I started this business now, and I have a chance to provide for my family and secure wealth for my family. But then I also have a chance to bring other people on board that's going to do the work and be a blessing to them and their families because it's going to be more than enough money to go around. Pay them a fair wage, take care of them and their family, and watch your productivity go through the roof. Your turnover rate will
Yes.
be your turnover rate will be almost at zero because nobody's going to want to leave. Why would I want to leave a job where my boss treats me with dignity and respect? They're paying me well. I get overtime. I got health and dental. I got a pension or at least some kind of retirement that when I done invested my 20 or 30 years here, I can retire with dignity and respect and not have to go on welfare and things like that. Why would I leave a company? I wouldn't. In fact, I'm gonna come work for you, and I'm gonna be the best employee you ever had, and I'm gonna make sure that my production numbers stay up. I mean, it only makes sense. I mean, that's as they like to say, that's economics 101. I mean, Jesus, I'm not no business guru, but I would think that would make more sense than what they're doing now. I don't know. You tell me.
No, I agree with you. That podcast I sent you before, Pitchfork Economics. The guy who is a capitalist, who is a big business owner, who is very rich, he makes the same argument. Um, and for you to say that, you love America, but you're not putting money into the economy to keep it going, kind of hypocritical. You just love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in the words of Cornel West, when he talks about these things, he highlights how we have a spiritual void. There's no spiritual values. There's no love. There's no compassion. No empathy. No charity. No humility. It's just greed. It's greed, 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 greed. They want more, 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 more. Take all they can take. And for what though? What do you get? You look at these people at the end of their life and they have a bunch of failed relationships. They never fostered anything other than making money.
Yep. And you can't even take it with you. That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
The way they act, you would think you'd be able to take it with you. The way they act. But the sad thing is, and the reality of it is, you can't take it with you. You can't. It's not going with you. In fact, whatever you leave here is going to get squandered and used up and abused. uh, it's been time and time again. You have these families that build these businesses, and then you get old, you die, you leave it to your children or the grandchildren, and the first thing they do is sell it. The first thing, if they don't sell it, they run through the money until the business just folds, and then they have to sell it. But they don't care. Nobody cares. You done wasted your whole life accumulating all this money for what? It doesn't benefit anybody. When you could have been a blessing your whole life to people, not only to your employees, but probably to whoever else, any corporation. I mean, any organization is helping people. You could have been a blessing to them instead of
Yeah.
hoarding all this money. People, accumulate all this money, but for what? Because again, you can't take it with you, and the people you leave it for don't appreciate it, and they're gonna run through it just like water. I mean,
Think about, sorry.
Mhm.
Using Bob from Bob's Red Mill as an example. Do you think any of his employees or the city he started his business in will forever forget him? They will always remember him for the kind of person that he was.
Exactly. Exactly. Now that's a legacy. He
Yeah,
left a legacy. And thank God that he was smart enough to do what he did and turn it to an employee owned so that the employees can still hold on to it and even have a bigger investment in the company because now they own it and they're running it. So if it fails, it'll be based on them because they're the ones doing it now. But thank God that he wasn't, he didn't fall for no okey doke and toward the end sell it because if he had sold it, they'd be out of a job. They'll be out of a job. And speaking of that, let's watch this next video because it leads into what we was just talking about, and that is corporations with their millions of dollars of profits. That when they start buying up companies, first thing they want to do is move overseas. So this one is about Rayovac and the Energizer and Spectrum, because I think Spectrum bought uh, Energizer, and then they brought Rail back. But anyway, we'll hear their story. So take a listen.
To know is don't think you're safe. We really thought we were in this small town. All these people have no jobs now.
For decades, battery manufacturing supported the communities of Fenimore and Portage, Wisconsin. But suddenly, last year, everything changed.
Energizer says it plans to close down its plants in Portage and Fenimore in the next year or two, affecting nearly 600 workers.
Energizer is moving its jobs here overseas, to Singapore and the UK, and to a non-union factory in North Carolina. But the 600 union workers at these two factories aren't the only ones in trouble. America has lost 35% of our manufacturing jobs in the last 40 years. The question is, what happened?
They knew what they were doing from the beginning. They had a plan.
Why have jobs in towns like Fenimore and Portage, places that used to be the bedrock of American manufacturing, disappeared? To find an answer, we went to Wisconsin. What we learned wasn't just about Energizer. It was also about how companies buy their competitors to shift profits to executives at workers' expense. How politicians who claim to care about American jobs let them get away with it, and what we can do to stop it.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning. I have been in that facility for 43 years. I've been through every change in that plant.
Chris has worked in the battery plant since she was 18. Her husband and her sister also worked there. 4 years ago, new ownership suddenly took over their factory.
Energizer will pay $2 billion in cash to take over Spectrum's battery and lighting assets.
Chris says right away, she could tell something was up.
Well, when we went into negotiations, they wanted a 3-year contract. That tipped me off right there. Rayovac always wanted a 5-year. To me, that suggested we're going to be gone. They bought us to move us.
By buying Rayovac, Energizer locked up 40% of the consumer battery market in the US. Combined with Duracell, they control 80%. That's called a duopoly. When only two major companies control a market, it's much easier for them to coordinate to increase prices or to reduce labor costs. Sure enough, over the next 3 years, Energizer raised prices across 85% of its products. Then came the announcement in Wisconsin.
Real quick, Quentin. Remember the video we saw with Ramsey, the financial guy, and he was saying, "Let the market correct itself. We need competition. Is why we have the prices and things that I'm doing. The competition. Well, when you only got two companies dealing with batteries, where's the competition?
This is the market correcting itself, and this is why we need regulation.
Oh my God! I mean, we need what competition? This is it. And you got two of them. So what you gonna do? And then they're gonna they cahoots together to say, okay, well, look, you raise this week, I'll raise next week, and we'll just keep raising prices.
And where do you like what regular person comes in and wants to start a business and can get into this industry? You got to be Jeff Bezos if you want to buy into this at this point.
Exactly. Because you think about what equipment you would have to buy to even, to
Compete.
to make batteries, with all the chemicals and stuff that's involved. I mean, you're right. You had to be a Jeff Bezos because the average person couldn't do it.
Nope.
Let's continue.
2 weeks before Christmas. What a time to tell us. We got called into a mass meeting. We had really no forewarning. They just took us upstairs, sat us down, and read a statement telling us the plant's going to close in 18 to 24 months, and out the door they went. We couldn't ask no questions, no nothing. We were all stunned.
It made me sick to my stomach. This has been my life for 11 years. Where am I going to find another job? Are we going to start having to find daycare?
Sarah works at Energizer's other Wisconsin plant, making hearing aid batteries. She works the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., then gets her daughters ready for school.
I go out and I do DoorDash or Instacart or Spark delivery for Walmart until they come home from school.
So when do you sleep?
A few hours after work and a few hours before work.
Sarah's oldest daughter and son-in-law work at the plant too. She says their union wages are good, and Energizer could not accept that.
I do think that Energizer purchased our plant and the Fenimore plant with the intent of eventually shutting us down. We're union, they can't just cut our wages. So they're outsourcing our jobs to non-union plants where they can pay them a lot less.
I'd never been involved in any political thing ever, but once they announced this, I really was angry. With our union reps from both Portage and Fenimore, we did a lot of campaigning in front of our buildings out on the street, handing out flyers. We wrote to our congressman, somebody's got to do something.
It seems to me that when seeking support from the government, these billion-dollar corporations talk up their American facilities and workers. All the while, some of these corporations, like Energizer, are making plans to move a union facility to a non-union state or a foreign country. Rayovac, I mean, that was ubiquitous in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin began to look more closely at what Energizer had done. She realized it was actually regulators who had allowed it to happen, at the Federal Trade Commission in Washington.
Mergers have to be approved by the government. This merger was looked at by the Federal Trade Commission, and it looks like it was simply rubber stamped.
The FTC has the power to challenge mergers, but when Energizer told the FTC in 2018 that it was buying Spectrum, the FTC did nothing.
So, America, listen, this is where big money come in at. You heard what she said. It looked like they just rubber stamped it. That's because Energizer and whoever put enough money somewhere for them to look the other way. Because there's no way we're supposed to have only two major battery companies, and that's it. And that's all we got to choose from. So somebody's pocket got lined very deeply for them to just stamp it, never looked at it, and kept on going. Just saying.
It's kind of shocking that a merger like this is not challenged. The layoffs that are expected from the Energizer Spectrum merger are a completely natural consequence of the merger that took place in 2018. When shareholders go down the merger path, they're trying to cut costs. And at the end of the day, labor is a cost.
Companies often promise that consolidation will preserve existing jobs, or even that it will create more jobs. But without fail, the opposite happens.
There was the merger of T-Mobile and Sprint in 2020. You had executives saying that this was going to result in 11,000 new jobs from day one. And what do you see in the aftermath of that merger? 8,000 jobs were cut. The CEO of T-Mobile walked away with $137 million. It's almost as if that's a reward for laying off workers.
Since Energizer acquired Spectrum, its CEO pay has tripled to $9 million a year.
We have been aware of the hefty bonuses that the executives and all the higher-ups have received since the merger, and the bonuses they earn quarterly compared to what we're getting.
How would you compare the two?
Well, we get nothing, and they're getting millions.
Energizer reported a profit of $1.1 billion in 2022 and paid shareholders $93 million in dividends. Big payouts to executives and shareholders are part of why the number of mergers has dramatically increased in recent decades. The other reason is that business-friendly regulators stopped challenging them.
Politicians have aggressively pursued a policy of globalization, moving our jobs, our wealth, and our factories overseas.
From his first campaign, Donald Trump talked a lot about globalization and free trade agreements harming U.S. manufacturing. He's right that cheap non-union labor has been a boon for companies. But as president, Trump's actions tell a different story. It was actually the Trump administration that let Energizer get away with killing these 600 union jobs. At the time of the merger, the acting chairwoman of the FTC, chosen by President Trump, was opposed to government regulation and believed antitrust enforcement put an undue burden on corporations.
It just feels like during the Trump administration that this was rubber stamped. Without any conditions attached, they said just go for it.
Even the companies expected more from the FTC. Spectrum's lawyer admitted it had been prepared for a long investigation, but was pleasantly surprised that one never happened.
This is part of a trend of neglect of the antitrust laws. There were over 2,200 mergers that were reported to the federal agencies in 2018. Of those, only 22 were challenged by the Federal Trade Commission. Shockingly, the merger guidelines have never made a reference to labor markets. They've never considered the impacts of mergers on workers.
For the first time in decades, this is changing. When President Biden took office, he appointed reformer Lina Khan to lead the FTC. In July, Khan's FTC released a draft of new guidelines for policing mergers. For the first time, the guidelines say regulators should look at the potential effects of a merger on workers and jobs.
One of the big advantages to the new merger guidelines is that it doesn't treat workers as a tradable efficiency. That is a huge change in the law, and I think that they're going to inform a sea change in the way that the federal agencies view the impact of market consolidation on workers.
I am pressing the Federal Trade Commission to go back and look at the decision-making process to give the green light to this merger. What if those guidelines were in effect? Would you have made the same decision?
Layoffs at Energizer are expected to begin this month and will continue until every job is eliminated by June of next year.
I think we're all just kind of hanging in there right now. We don't know what to expect. There's not a lot of jobs in this area.
Tim, one of Chris's colleagues, still works at the plant. Before the closure announcement, he and his wife were approved for a first-time mortgage loan.
We went and got the house. We were all excited, put the offer in, and then they come back and tell us that with my employment being terminated, that we no longer qualify for any sort of loan until my employment is done. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Right now, it's just keep going to work while the doors are open and see what happens and see where life takes us now. I feel like you're just pieces on a chessboard at this point.
What do you say, Quentin?
That's sad. I'm gonna go back to what you said. Like, how can you just do people like that? You know. And so the lady Trump put in the FTC made a comment and said that regulations put undue burden on corporations. You mean corporations that make billions of dollars that puts undue burdens on them?
I heard that. I'm like, what undue burden? What burden are you putting on them if they're being investigated and make sure that what they're going to do is not going to affect and change so many lives? I mean, really?
How do we not care about people? Like, how do you, because you have to go out your way to be like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially when you know, okay, these two factories are located out in middle America. And ain't a whole lot out there except farming and maybe a few other things. But these are like two major entities that, the mother worked there, the father worked there, the sister, the brother, the aunt, and the wages that they're making was good enough to where they can live here comfortable and have a family and thrive and all this. And you saw how they downtown was. It was thriving. It was busy. It was people around, people spending money. And you want to take that away because you don't want to pay a decent wage. You rather pay somebody $2 an hour or move to a state that don't have a union or not unionized. I don't know. But these are the policies that they need to be talking about.
Yeah.
The policies that y'all come up with need to help these are real people. These weren't actors. Yeah. These are real people. That's where your policies all need to be down right where they're at. You need to be helping them because they're the ones that need the help. Because I remember in Rocky Mount, growing up, we had Texify, which was garment, the garment industry, textile industry, and Texify for a long time. Man, that was the place to work. They paid very, very well. Everybody and their mother worked there. A lot of people knew that when they graduated, they was going straight over to Texify and start working because you made such good money over there. It's right here, and the at that time the cost of living was very minimal in that area, and so the money that you was making went a long, long way, and eventually they end up closing that down, and it affected so many people. I mean, that was like so devastating to the area because it was like just like with Energizer, it was such a staple in the area. And then to close them down like that and not replace it with anything or not have any opportunity for something else to come in as equal or greater to take their place is devastating to an area. It's devastating. Man, you're talking about people now got to figure out what they're going to do. Yeah. But this is where the policies need to be looked at when we're doing stuff because I can care less. There's no, I'm sorry, and this is not nothing negative. I'm not jumping on them, but I'm just saying, you're going to make a law or policy to allow people to go into any restroom they want because they feel like whatever. This is important. We're going to make legislations and we're going to pass a law. We're going to do all this that you do to make this happen. And that don't affect nobody when these people have lost their jobs and they're being affected. Now you tell me which one is more important. I can care less. If you think you're a woman, whatever, I don't care. Okay, you were born a man, go to the men's restroom. If you were born a woman, go to the women's bathroom. And that should be the end of that. We should have no policies. We shouldn't be creating no laws to accommodate them. But because they are a organized block of vote, they got a seat at the table. And this is where we all have to realize. Now I know, like with unions, they're voting for, they're pushing for Kamala Harris. But I wish the unions would take a harder look at that action because they're not for unions, even though they say they are. Their policies are not going to help unions. They're not. They're not going to help unions. Before unions to support any, whether it be Democrat or, man, you need to find out exactly where they lie at when it comes to union, because you got companies, they'll come in to a state, and as soon as you talk about union, they'll say, well, you know what? If y'all gonna have a union, we're gonna go somewhere else. So now you should have a law that's saying once you done committed and signed on the dotted line, you need to build your factory. But it should be where anybody wants to have a union, they should be allowed to have a union. Mm-hmm. They should be allowed to have a union. If they have organized and they have said that we would like to have a union at our location, then they should be able to have a union, especially if the company that they want to have the union at needs accountability. They're not doing right. They're trying to screw the worker. then yeah, you need a union because you're gonna need somebody in there to make sure that the workers get treated right.
Yep.
I just
So,
don't get it.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
um, you know, well, two things. I want to go back to uh, them rubber stamping that merger.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that Congress, Congress people, senators in general, uh, they buy stock. So this person who rubber stamp this, they can see all these things come down the line, and they can buy more stock to increase, their profit, their money. So that's one thing. Um, which should be illegal, but I thought there were laws against insider trading. Did they make it legal now or something? Because there
No,
was
no,
that
it's
senator, yeah, the senator here in North Carolina a year or two ago, got into a bunch of trouble. They found out he was insider trading.
yep.
And another thing that I wrote down was, oh, we were talking about unions support political candidates, which made me think that they've been calling Joe Biden the first pro-union president. He ain't the first. If we gonna talk about somebody being the first, then it was FDR. He was the first. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. So he puts this lady in place in the Federal Trade Commission,
Mm-hmm.
who put in that we should look at the people who are going to be hurt by this. That's a good thing.
Exactly.
We don't applaud them for doing that because at this point we're just getting breadcrumbs. We're not clapping for him for doing things that should have been done 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's expected at this point.
Yep.
So that's all I got.
Well, you bring up a good point because if we went back, I mean, of course, hindsight, and if you say, what if, we can play that game, but okay, let's play that game because to be honest, if back in the day, people were more concerned about people's welfare and ensuring that everybody has a foot up, they can get a foot up, and they would have regulated a lot of stuff. Not the talking about, we don't want government involved in everything. No, what I'm saying is that government is an entity to ensure that there's fairness across the board. That's what they're there for. They're not getting in your business, they're not telling you how to run the business. But if they see the way that you are gouging, price gouging, manipulating the market, or you're going on this buying spree of buying up all the mom and pops to eliminate your competition so that you can just charge whatever you want, that's a good thing. When the government can come in and say, "Oh, that's enough. You don't bought enough." No, because what you're doing, you're taking away competition, and competition is what runs and drives the motor of the economy. Just like Dave Ramsey was saying, competition, let the market, correct itself. Well, there ain't nobody out there to correct it because everybody's gone. They done bought up everybody, and whoever was left, they left. So now you ain't got but two or three big competitors, and then they're sitting in a boardroom together trying to figure out how they can just control everything, and that's what they end up doing. So yes, government should have some say so as far as businesses when they're not practicing good business habits. That's what they should be there for. If they're doing things that's going to harm the American people, then yes, I think the federal government should be able to come in and say and do something to stop them from harming the American people. I think. I don't know. What do you think, Quinn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I agree that they're supposed to be the middleman. They set the laws and the regulations for working people to so people are treated fairly, and so that corporations aren't dumping their waste in the river we drink out of.
Yeah. Yeah. Because think about it. If our government was really on point and on their job, they would have realized that was it Flint, Michigan, they had the contaminated water.
Mm-hmm.
That might have not have been an issue. But when you don't have nobody watching the hen house, the fox gonna come in and do whatever. Um, there's no way you're not gonna sit there and tell me that they probably got all kind of money for their infrastructure, but yet they allow their infrastructure to collapse. So you're getting federal money to keep your infrastructure up. And now we're finding out that you don't let your water supply get so run down and contaminated. Pipes haven't been replaced in years. So now I want to know, what did y'all do with the money? I want to know. I need an audit. I'm sitting in my audit team because I want to know. We done sent you hundreds of thousands of dollars for infrastructure, and you're now telling me that your water supply is contaminated and has to be shut down. You got pipes that haven't been replaced in years, and this water is killing people. So what did y'all do with the money for your infrastructure? I need to send in my audit team because I need to know, because somebody needs to answer for this. People have died from that water, having cancer and things of that nature. Children all messed up from this water that you were responsible for. And you're going to sit there and tell me that we shouldn't have government regulations? Please, please. America is sick. America is sick and they're greedy. And all they care about is themselves. And you don't think that we should have government oversight and control at some point? Not to tell the business how to do their business, but to make sure that they're running their business to where it doesn't affect the American people. I don't understand why can't nobody see that. Oh, we don't need government. Why? The company ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or we wouldn't be in this mess that we're in now.
Yeah.
Wake up, America.
Now, as far as Flint, I don't know if Flint was one of those cases of hydraulic fracturing when they was drilling for the gas.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that in another place, I want to say New York, somewhere around like New York or the DMV area, when they started fracking is when they released the gas in the water, and that's how the water got contaminated. And there was some, as a matter of fact, in New York, right now in New York, they banned fracking. But from what I understand, from what I heard, the governor there now is trying to undo all those regulations.
Well, that's like here in North Carolina. Was it Duke that was dumping the coal ash?
Duke Energy.
Dumping the coal ash. Now they know that stuff was contaminated, and they're dumping it in the water. You don't think they're supposed to be held accountable? They should still be paying for that right now.
Yep.
They should be paying it for the rest of their lives. Whatever cleanup or monitoring and cleanup, and anybody's been affected, anybody got cancer or whatever from that area, from them, they should be paying for that right now. And you don't think we're supposed to have government oversight? But then the problem with the government oversight is that if you don't put somebody with some moral scruples, some backbone in these positions, guess what? They're gonna get bought off. They're gonna get bought off, just like they just showed when Energizer and Rayovac, and they're doing this merger thing, and the paperwork went into the Federal Trade Commission. And here the guy even said he thought it was going to be a while. He thought they were going to really look into it. Guess what? They just stamped it and sent it on. Why? Because somebody got their pockets lined. Somebody got their pockets lined, because you're not going to sit here and tell me that I'm looking at this paperwork. If they do this merger, we're only going to have two major battery companies, Duracell and Energizer, and that's it. That's so you won't have nobody there'll be no more like aftermarket batteries. It'll be just them. And and if there's any aftermarket batteries, they'll be the ones making them. Because a lot of the name brand companies that I found out a while back. A lot of name brand companies are the ones that make the store brand. It's the same product. They just put the store brand name on it. Same product.
Yep.
And y'all want to say that we don't need government intervention? Are you kidding me? We need government, but you also, like I said, you're gonna need somebody that's gonna have some scruples and some moral backbone in these positions that's gonna be able to ward off when these people come up there and trying to, buy them lunch and give them trips and slip a little money in their account and all this other stuff. You're gonna need somebody that says, "No, can't do that. We're gonna do this by the book." And we got people out there like that. They'll do the right thing, but
Yeah, no, we do.
So it's possible. You just gotta do your homework, your interviewing to put the right people in spot. But to sit here and say that we don't need no government intervention, I don't know. Y'all better rethink that one. So, and another thing, so one last thing, because we run out of time. So America, Quentin also sent me another video. This man named Tim Wise. Um, you gotta check him out on YouTube. He's very interesting. This is a white man, and this is a white man talking about the issues in America dealing with racism and things of that nature, and why we have the problem that we have because people fall for the lie that they talk about when they talk about racism and all the other stuff that come with it. That we fall for this, and this is what we listen to. So our final thing we'll talk about, because this also affects our economy, because when you look at it, the division that we have, we're always going against one another. Asians against Hispanics and whites against the blacks and all this other stuff. And we feed into the lie that they talk about them taking our jobs and taking what jobs? What a black job? What a brown, but we feed into it when they start talking about, yeah, they're taking your job. What do you mean they're taking your job? Ain't nobody taking nobody's job. If you want to work, you'll work. Ain't nobody taking no job. If you really want to work, you can work. But this guy, Tim Wise, he has some really clear, precise information of how we've been fed a bunch of mess and how we believe in it. And also he talks about how we actually need to be more open to when we deal with other racist issues. Don't take it personal, because to that race, it is important, or it does mean something to them. For you to dismiss it and say, "Oh, well, that's in the past," or that's not happening now, or that's not how I felt. That's all well and good, but for that race, whether it be the Indians, American Indian, the Hispanic, Black, Asian American, however you want to look at it, each group has things that have happened to them over the years that affects them as a race. And we need to sit down and have conversations and acknowledge these things and try to have some empathy about these things, because it affected them. Just things that affected white folks that we should be sympathetic to. And he brought up, I don't know if I have the clip that he brought up, but he had mentioned how they was keeping black folks uninformed, and then the people in power keeping the poor white folks just as dumb as the black, you know what I'm saying? Because they needed them to do the dirty work. That's another thing too. You need to look back in history. Look at who was in charge back then with the white power, and look at who was doing the dirty work. It was the poor whites. The poor whites they had doing all the dirty work. The people with the money, they weren't getting their hands dirty. It was you, the common everyday man, just like the common everyday black man, common everyday white man, common everyday Asian man, the one that goes out there and goes to work from 9 to 5 and all that. You're the one that was doing all the work. And then you listening to the people above you They'll tell you to try to make it seem like you on their level, and you weren't. And they're trying to say that that race is affecting the way you are. That's why you're in the position you are now, because of them. Well, how? They ain't got no power. So how are they affecting you in the situation that you in? They ain't got no power themselves. So how are they doing it? I mean, it'd be different if they had money and influence and things of that nature. Then I say, okay, well, they're using their money, their power, their influence to manipulate you. But we didn't have no black folks didn't have no influence, money, and power. So how are they making your world difficult? Think about it. Anyway, that's what this Tim Weiss guy say. And so I just want to play a small clip, and y'all make sure y'all look him up because he is very, 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 very good. And he's also funny in some of the stuff he talks about. But anyway, let's take a listen.
To Black Lives Matter would be like getting in a time machine tonight, going back to 1971, hearing somebody say black is beautiful and interrupting them so as to let them know, well, we're all beautiful in our own way. Yes, shut up, we know. Sort of misses the point. Be like going back to the early 80s, right, when the HIV/AIDS crisis hit. And in those first few years of the HIV/AIDS crisis, remember, we had a government that did nothing. President Reagan sat by and watched thousands of people die before he even uttered the term AIDS. He only said something because his buddy Rock Hudson from the movies died of it. And then he decided he would speak on it and begin to cut loose some research funds for it. But for the first couple of years, didn't want to say anything about it, right? And there were activist groups out in the street, right? ACT UP, Gay Men's Health Crisis, others out in the street demanding funding for AIDS research. And what they were in effect saying, even though they didn't use the term and even though we didn't have hashtags in those days, right? Ultimately what they were saying was people with AIDS lives matter. So to say all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter would be like going back to one of those rallies in 1982, 1983, interrupting the rally for AIDS funding to remind everyone that, well, people die of pancreatic cancer too. Yes, sweetheart, and totally irrelevant to the current situation. You have to demand recognition of the thing that gets swept under the rug. That's black life, that's brown life, that's people of color, you see, because we are a country built on the premise that black lives didn't matter. And I know we don't want to hear that, but that's just truth. We're built on a society that said that black lives didn't matter except insofar as they could provide cheap labor to enrich white people. That was how black folks were viewed, as cheap labor, expendable labor. I should also point out, it is how indigenous people were viewed, as people who could be expendable and committed genocide against without hesitation. It was also the way that many Asian Americans were viewed when they were brought here from places like China to work on the Transcontinental Railroad, worked to death, didn't care if they died or not. It's the way that Latino folks were viewed when in the 1930s we expelled tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands actually, of Mexican Americans who were citizens of this country, and we sent them back to Mexico in spite of their citizenship to free up jobs for white men. You didn't learn that in high school history. Maybe you ought to ask your history teacher why. Because it's not contestable, it's not arguable, it's not like there's a rebuttal to what I just said. That happened. But we didn't learn about it because black and brown lives historically have not mattered except insofar as they serve the interest of the dominant group. Now, we can either deal with that and be honest about it, or we can keep running from it and acting like it didn't happen. But if we don't talk about it, if we don't understand that history, it becomes very difficult, doesn't it, to understand the current moment. You can't understand the movement against police misconduct if you don't understand the history of policing in this country vis-a-vis people of color. See, black and brown folks know this history because it's embedded on their DNA. It's embedded in their family stories. They've had to learn it as a way to stay alive. But those of us called white haven't had to learn any of this. So we don't have to know the fact that modern policing traces back to slave patrols. That's where it comes from. What was the slave patrol? It was the thing that rich white people created to take poor white people and have them control black folks. Those of us who don't come from wealth might want to think about what that trick was. All right? Elites who owned other people telling the rest of us, some of us poor white folks who didn't own anybody, hey, you're still part of the team. You can go control these black people for us. See, that was a trick that rich folks played on poor folks to make poor white folks think that they had more in common with rich white people than they did with black people. Some shit doesn't change. That still happens today. That is still the way that we operate today. And if people don't understand that, it's because they don't understand how that system works. So take it back to like 20 years ago now, right? A little over 20 years ago, the OJ verdict. I know there have been a couple. I mean, the first one. The first O.J. Simpson verdict, right? This verdict when O.J. Simpson was accused of, tried for, and ultimately acquitted of double murder in 1995, right? And you remember there was a big divide racially in this country, right? Black folks, about 2 out of 3, said that they agreed with the verdict. The acquittal they believed was just, doesn't mean they thought he was innocent, by the way. I talked to a lot of black folks at that time. They were like, oh, I think he did that shit. But y'all made the rules, and under the rules that you made about reasonable doubt, I think you did not meet your burden. So you made the rules, you live by the rules. 2/3 of white folks were like, oh my God, this is the most awful miscarriage of justice. I can't believe, how in the world does this happen? This is the system was great until like 2 minutes ago. And then OJ walked and oh God, what the hell's going on in this country, right? Major racial divide. But listen, you know what? That racial divide made sense. It made perfect sense. I don't think it was because white people were racist and unfeeling and uncaring. Hell, white folks had loved OJ for like 20 years, man. OJ was done with black folks. Black folks were done with OJ. Like OJ had walked, I'm just being honest, like OJ was not a black problem. Like OJ had walked away from black people. Like he grew up in Hunters Point in San Francisco, went to USC right there in the hood in South Los Angeles, and said when he left USC, like he didn't ever want to go back. He never wanted to go. So he started making Naked Gun movies that like only white people saw. And then he was like running through the airports in those Hertz commercials, selling rental cars to white people. Like white folks loved OJ until he did something that reminded them of a stereotype they had about black men. Then it was like, oh, he's black people's problem again, right? But OJ, so 2/3 of white folks didn't like the verdict. 2/3 of black folks liked the verdict, believed it was just, and that made perfect sense because what happened, if you remember the case, and if you don't, let me just fill you in real quick. One of the reasons that there was any kind of reasonable doubt was because one of the chief investigators who found a disproportionate amount of the blood evidence was revealed to be an overt racist. Right? So when black folks hear that, when they hear that there's a cop who found the evidence implicating a black man in the murder of 2 white people who regularly uses the N-word in an overtly racist way, then somehow, you know, like alarm bells go off in black heads. Right? And by the same token, white folks don't hear those alarm bells because we're like, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Planting evidence on people. Who does that? That's bizarre. That makes no sense at all. That doesn't happen. No, it doesn't happen to us. But it does happen to people of color. There's a long history of that. In fact, not only is there a long history, at the very moment that the O.J. Simpson trial was taking place, 1994, 1995, at that very moment, we come to find out a few years later, if you paid attention to the news out of Los Angeles, that in fact there were dozens of officers in the LAPD who were at that very moment engaged in a pattern of misconduct and abuse and planting evidence on suspects of color to sweeten the deal against them in various prosecutions. It became the Rampart scandal. You can look that up. It was one division of the LAPD. It was happening at the very same time as that trial. So when black folks said, we think evidence might have been planted, and white folks said, that's paranoid nonsense, in fact, it wasn't. It was rooted in a reality, in a recognition that that stuff happens. Doesn't mean that that's what happened in the OJ case. It doesn't mean that that evidence was planted, but it does mean that to wonder if that's possible.
To wonder if that's possible. That's a good question, to wonder. But the sad thing is, he's right on a lot of the stuff that he talked about. Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, we get caught up in our race, and the black experience is one experience, and the white experience, Asian experience. It's all different experiences. But because we refuse to embrace that experience and we're we're quick to go with the stereotype that has been projected on the different races. There's always some kind of stereotype that has been put out on Asians and Hispanics, and you know, think about it. Every time you see a you know that commercial for that beer, ma- 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 begins with
Dos
a,
Equis,
no, not that one. It's the gold, begins with an M.
Modelo.
Thank you. The beer. Do you notice on all them commercials when they do Hispanics, it's they're either shown with tattoos or they're in um the hydraulic rides and all. You know what I'm saying? It's like they stereotype them. They just can't be some Hispanics out on the town drinking beer. They have to like introduce the stereotype of them from their neighborhood.
Yep.
Um, and they do that for black commercials. They want to stereotype. We're all running around hip hop and all this other stuff. Um, it's a stereotype for every race, and we feed into it, and then we feed into it, and we go with it. And so when things happen, you know, but that's how those people act, or that's how those people, you know, this, and that's not how we should respond. That's why we're so screwed up as America, because we have fell into the narrative. And then, like he said, um, about the elite and how they control the poor is exactly what had happened. And that's only made it worse. And he was right. You need to think about what that, because that's what's happening now in some cases. But I don't know. What do you think?
I like him. I think he's right. I think it's very courageous for him to stand up and say what he said. And he does it in a way to where he's not blaming people, you know. Um, he says it like he'll be like, you're ignorant, and I understand why you're ignorant. I'm not using ignorant as a derogatory term. Although he didn't say ignorant, that's,
Right.
as he described it, that's what he meant.
And I mean, it's about education. It's
Yeah.
about education and knowledge. And when you use the word ignorant, you are ignorant because you don't know. It's not that you're ignorant, just dumb. You're just ignorant without, you don't have the knowledge or understanding of that certain situation. So,
And I want to say I like when he talks about the slave owners back in the day, how this was wealthy white man. Now, when I look at that history and I see that, and this may sound radical, but I can't logically in my brain, America was never intended to be a democracy. It was intended for white wealthy men to hold and maintain power. And if you look at the different laws that have been passed along the way, that's exactly what has happened. That's what happened. That's where the electoral college came from. Is that there were more black people, more slaves than there were white people. And so that's when they came up with the electoral college. And as he said,
yeah,
if we can get now, black people got work to do too. I'm not saying that. But if we could get the majority of white people to work with us, then we could actually make some actual progress.
I believe it. I believe it. And that's why I was saying we got to start. We, I'm sorry. The days of the Democratic and the Republican Party, they're over.
Yeah.
They're over. And I think this election and this year, if people are really listening and really doing their research and really trying to be informed as a voter, they'll say the same thing. Don't vote Democrat just because. Just because. If you believe in Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, if you believe in them and you believe in their policies and they represent who you are and what you believe in and how you feel, then by all means support them. vote for them because that's what your vote is for. But don't vote for these people just because you don't want the other person in, or just because that's just how we do. My family's been Republicans for the last 80 years, and we've always voted Republican. That's what is that saying? So was it right to vote Republican? Did the person has the policies and the foresight that you are looking for in order to make this country better? That I mean, that just if you think about that, just think about it, America. That just doesn't make sense anymore to vote for a party just cause for whatever, and you can put whatever the reason after cause, but it's really stupid. And for black folks, really, black folks should be outraged because you've had black folks tell you to vote black just because they're black. Not that they're going to make things better and help the tax break, give you tax breaks or whatever policies is going to help you, job training, uh, student loan debt, name it. None of that. All they say is that vote for her because she's black. She'll be the first black uh, whatever. Really, but is she qualified?
Yeah.
Is she going to really do anything? Because some of the stuff that she's talking about bringing policy and law to and all that ain't gonna help us as a people, as a people as a whole. But Quentin, you said it, brother. You said it. You said it, and I hope this goes out. I hope that people make this thing go viral because he said it. Until we realize that we're all on the same boat, even though they're telling you we're not, we are. We're all in the same situation. And if we don't start working together, having dialogue together, and come up with a very viable game plan together to get these fools from out of Congress that ain't doing us no good, and let's get some people up there with some morals and some scruples and some backbone that are really going to knuckle down and do the work of the people and get some policies and things in place so that we can move forward as a country. Because right now, the way we going, if y'all vote, to be honest, you vote either one of them in, y'all ain't gonna see nothing. It's gonna go either way bad. It's gonna go bad toward Democrat. It's gonna go bad toward Republicans. It ain't gonna help you. For you, the American person that's paying outrageous property tax. For you, the American that are paying almost $2,000 a month in rent for a one bedroom, it ain't gonna help you, the American, that's got to decide whether I'm gonna put gas in my car or buy food for my family. Ain't nothing they gonna do gonna help you. That's why we got to get them out and get some people up there that knows what's going on the ground on the ground floor, and it's gonna be able to put some things in place to help us out here on the ground floor. I'm telling you. Any last words there, Mr. Quentin?
Nope, I don't have any. This was good. Videos were good. I think we got a lot of good material.
I tell you, brother, it is a lot, and you would think there wouldn't be a lot out there, but and and uh, and my brother sent me a list. We still got some deep subjects that we need to dive deep into and kind of pick it apart and have a good conversation about it, so that y'all can take that conversation and you have a good conversation in your neck of the woods wherever you are at. And so that's the whole purpose. Like I said, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. Real talk for real people, not just following the party lines because that's what they say. I can care less what they say. If you're not going to help me lower my taxes and do something with the this current tax system that we have now, it may be lower prices and stop putting all these regulations on car manufacturers. They're putting all this stuff on these cars and then they raise the price of the cars. For what? And then you want to tell somebody that by 2026 we're supposed to have all electric vehicles. Really? Who the hell's going to have the money to buy an electric vehicle when they got to pay $2,000 in rent? Who's going to buy an electric vehicle? Do you know mom and pop that live way out there in rural North Carolina? You think they're going to buy an electric vehicle? Are you serious? Really? This is what we worried about. Y'all worried about energy. You need to open up the pipelines. You need to start making, you need to be selfish about America. Open up the pipelines, start pumping the oil, and start taking care of America first. And start making these people that done left to go over to Singapore, Indonesia, Venezuela, all these other places. You know what? They want to stay over there, fine. You ought to tax the mess out of them to bring their stuff back over here. I bet you they'll move back to America then. Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, America, that's it. I think we've gone on long enough.
Yeah.
Please share, like, leave a review. Definitely leave some questions. Our email and information will be in the description, or you can go on our YouTube page and go to our community and leave your comments there. Or you can leave your comments when this airs as a video on YouTube. You can leave your comments on the comment page on YouTube, however you want to do it, so we can look at it and maybe bring it back to the platform and we can have a discussion about it. So we're not, we don't mind pushback. We don't mind your opinion, because that's the only way we want to learn and grow and encourage one another. That's the only way we want to do that. And so we got to hear your side, because you might have a point that we've been missing. I don't know, but let us know and we'll talk about it. So, but anyway, that's it for this episode. Until the next time, thank you, America, for joining us. We appreciate your help. We appreciate your support of the Truth to Freedom podcast. And until the next time, this is James Parker, along with my brother, Mr. Quentin Williams. Mr. Williams, you have a great evening, sir.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. And we are out of here. And until the next time, America.